Want to say hi to the camera? It's right there. What do you think about self-driving cars, Gosita? Any words? Not a fan? I'm gonna put you down. So, getting into this video, I have like hair all over me. Anyway, getting into this video, this is a big question that I remember I had when I was a driver, and I think a lot of drivers probably have the same exact question. And that is, will self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles affect Uber and Lyft, and will there even be an Uber driver or a Lyft driver in the future? Now, to start off, I want to say that I think this whole concept of self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles, or AVs, as they're sometimes referred to as, I think it's still so new of a concept, not only for the technology, but also for the psychology of the passenger. I mean, if you think about it, if you get into an Uber or Lyft and there's not a driver, it's an autonomous vehicle and it's self-driving, a lot of people now, even with like say Tesla really being on kind of the forefront of self-driving cars, a lot of people just don't trust them. So I think the technology and, like I said as well, the psychology of people taking them, a lot of people just don't trust them, to the point where I still feel like it's so far in the future that at least at the time of this video, it's something you don't really have to worry about. If you're watching this video being like, oh my God, Mark, I'm afraid that self-driving cars or robots essentially are going to take my job as an Uber driver and as a Lyft driver, I'm going to say one, that's years down the road, if it ever even happens. The second thing that I really want to talk about for this video regarding self-driving cars is, will they even ever happen? I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, and I feel like maybe in decades to come, they might become more mainstream. But in case you didn't know, Uber sold its kind of AV division and everything with self-driving cars to Aurora. And then just recently, Lyft is now selling its AV division to Toyota. So it almost seems like, if you look at both Uber and Lyft and what they're doing, it almost makes it seem like that both Uber and Lyft are like, you know what, we're just going to abandon autonomous vehicles. We're going to abandon self-driving cars. A few years ago, they were testing it out and trying to figure out, okay, can we actually make this work? Because, I mean, if you think about it, if Uber and Lyft could just make self-driving cars and have them pick you up and bring you anywhere else and bring you anywhere, well, if you think about it, they're going to make way more money than having to pay a human driver. However, I think for both Lyft and Uber, the fact that they did sell those divisions, it just shows that for both of them, they're like, you know what, we just don't think it's worth it. Or at least right now, here in 2021, at this time, it's just still so new that it's really not worth going into. Like I said, the technology is not there yet. And the second thing is the psychology of society of trusting self-driving cars is still light years into the future. So I want to say that on this video, that I really don't think you should even worry about at this state in time and at this point to even worry about self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles. Another thing I want to say too is talking about the idea of, will there ever be self-driving cars? Now, granted, I think in maybe decades to come, there could be. But for now, I think a big thing about Lyft and Uber that is kind of something that's not talked about enough is actually the human factor, not necessarily of the driver in terms of them operating the vehicle, but the conversation. I remember when I used to drive for Lyft and Uber, I almost kind of felt like a bartender. In case you didn't know, I also used to be a former bartender. And the conversations that I'd have, especially on a Friday and Saturday night, were very similar to the conversations I had when I was bartending. People would open up to you, they would vent to you, they would be like, hey, you know what, man, I gotta ask you a question, be real with me. I'm seeing this girl, what do you think about this? I'm seeing this guy, what do you think about this? Or, here's the situation that's going on at my work, do you have any opinion on this, you know? And so the conversations that I had as an Uber driver and as a Lyft driver were very similar to me being a bartender. And I think that's a big thing to keep in mind. Now, granted, for a decent amount of people, sometimes you just get in the Lyft, you go on your phone, that's it. You just get in the Uber, you don't want to be spoken to, you just kind of are doing some work, checking emails, whatever. But I feel like, especially for a lot of social people, and especially on Friday and Saturday nights, the conversation aspect of Lyft and Uber is something that makes it very worthwhile. I mean, sometimes, being honest, I'd much rather have a talkative driver than a non-talkative driver, because it makes a ride way more of a unique experience and makes it a lot more fun, especially when going out. At least at the time of this video, the whole pandemic is still going on, and Uber Pool and Lyft Line is not a thing yet. You know, it used to be, of course, but obviously they removed it because of the pandemic. But I'm not gonna lie, I actually missed taking an Uber Pool and a Lyft Line. Not even because it was cheaper, but because it was super fun meeting people and that kind of human interaction and that social aspect. I think that's a huge part of it. And so even if, like, say, you know, if, like, say there were self-driving cars, like, say, in decades to come through Lyft and Uber, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I might prefer, and I probably would prefer most of the time, having a human driver just to have that human interaction, to have that human conversation, and not making it so, not necessarily making it something to get from point A to point B, but to enjoy the journey while I am going from point A to point B. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think self-driving cars and autonomous vehicles will come about? Do you think even though Uber and Lyft kind of sold their divisions and for it seems like right now are kind of giving up on self-driving cars, you think they'll come back? And you think self-driving cars will become the norm when it comes to ride-sharing apps?